Seriously though, we're going to find out where you live, right? And then, leave this on there. And then... Hi!
Hello! And we're here today with probably a special feature.
Yeah, a little mini podcast?
A sort of podcast light.
Yeah, podcast light. Bit like the Switch
Podcast
light.
Junior. Yeah.
Podcast Junior. Daddy Junior. Baby podcast.
But yeah, essentially we're just going to talk a little bit today about Beachhead 2020, which we attended on Saturday last week.
Yes.
It was running over 2 days, I believe, on Saturday and Sunday.
I think the second day was only tournaments, though.
It looked like they still might have had some set up by the programme that we got.
Yeah, I guess it was just in between tournaments, people could look around and stuff like that, because obviously if you're just doing tournaments all day, it might be a little bit tedious.
Yeah, but it seemed like the main kind of like retailer day was the Saturday.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just want to talk a little bit about what we saw, what we think of Beachhead, and whether you should attend any future ones. So yeah.
You go first, I go first?
Let's start right from the beginning. Okay, so essentially walking into the hall, you're straight away hit by the Entoyment.
Yeah, so cleverly...
Which is great. It is great.
Yeah, so... Obviously done for a good reason. The main two entrances in were both ends of the Entoyment stall. So as soon as you go in to your left, Entoyment. As soon as you go into the other door, right, Entoyment. So it's like kind of... It's clever. It was very clever. The first and last thing you see more or less is Entoyment.
Yes.
Which is very, very clever.
But yeah, I mean, they had a lot of their inventory there.
Yeah, I would say the majority of their store was there. There wasn't... If you could think of it, they had it weirdly. So it was a case of like Infinity. They had.
They didn't have Infinity.
Did they have Infinity?
Do you know something? There was if I was going to say there was one thing that disappointed me about it, it was the lack of Infinity. There was only one stall that was selling Infinity stuff.
Is that the one with the little?
Yeah, it was kind of like more. I don't know whether it was first or second edition of Infinity models, but it was largely models that were outdated now.
Okay, so apparently I don't pay attention. I think there's plenty of fun. Okay,
Malifaux was really well represented.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Let's go back again. Games Workshop stuff was there.
Yes. They did have. They had a lot which covered every base. So if you were there for board games, they had a large collection of board games there.
Mini games.
They had miniatures. They had a lot of. I think they had a lot of their RPG books as well.
They did. Yeah, there was the stand they have in the store normally with all the little spinny stuff. So that was quite cool.
Yeah, but yeah, I think between them and Board Game Guru, you had your two representations for board game sales.
Yeah, they had Board Game Guru had just loads,
board games,
loads of board games. So this was the thing: if you couldn't find it in Entoyment, you can guarantee they had it there.
Yeah,
which is quite cool.
I think it's worth saying straight from the off, this is far more miniatures and war game based convention than board game one. However, it does have its board game representation there. They also had Asmodee there, who had a few games, like I remember seeing Deep Blue there.
Yeah, they had demo versions on the tables.
That was Gobble, I think I saw as well. So yeah, there was representation there for board games, but this was far more focused on your miniatures games.
So I know when I looked into it before, because a couple of years back, and I think it was mainly miniatures games and wargaming and stuff like that. And at the time I wasn't massively into it as I am now. But this year, I know from reading like on the posts on like Facebook and stuff like that, they definitely tried to cater for a few more people. So they added like a lot more board games. They had like you say testers, so you could basically try out a couple of games. So people were actively going, "Hey guys, you want to play a board game? Do you want to sit down? We've got a table. Like we just need one more person," which is great if you've not played like some of the games like Deep Blue, Dobble, stuff like that. And then they had outside. They had what's the name? Is it Norm? It wasn't Normcom, was it? Was that something separate?
That's something completely separate. That's another little convention that I think is running in the Entoyment store.
Right, okay.
The bit outside was just kind of like a general gaming area. So they had a library of games which you could help yourselves to and sit down. They had people on hand to be able to teach you a game if you weren't 100% familiar with the rules.
What was nice about this is these were the donated games from the people that were actually teaching you. So who better to teach the game than the person that owns the game? So that was quite nice. Everyone kind of knew their thing about that game that they brought in. So
I think we'll get onto that a bit later.
Yes.
If we go through where we went throughout the show, because I think shortly after we got hit in the face by Entoyment, I think we very quickly found the TTCombat table, who honestly, they're worth keeping an eye on, because it feels like they've got a lot of very cool looking miniatures games.
Yeah, so we knew when we went there that originally we were going to try and play this game called Carnevale. Oh man. So the setup was they had this beautiful little wooden, like Venetian kind of area, which was really, really cool. So it had like kind of a resin sort of waterway going through it. The buildings were MDF, and they just had some of the figures to play with from the start. So immediately, me and Matt came with us. We shot to that because I was like, oh, let's try that. I grabbed Stephen and we all sort of just watched for a little bit while the guy was explaining how to play it.
He explained it really, really well.
Yeah,
as well.
so it turns out the guy wasn't, he didn't work for TTCombat, but he happened to be someone that had backed the Kickstarter and just really loved it and got involved with it. So that was really, really cool. It was.
Can you remember his name?
I cannot remember his name, no, and I'm really sorry. I cannot remember his name because I was too caught up in the moment of drowning people.
So yeah, this is a big part of Carnevale, or at least
For us.
one faction. So the two factions they had on show was the ones that were kind of Assassin's Creedy, and I will say the settings, first of all, is very Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah, so majority of the characters are wearing the masks. A couple of them have like very Ezio-looking white robes with swords and stuff like that. So it's not direct rip-offs, but there were a couple of figures we saw which had like almost like not two blades, but two daggers and a hooded robe with a long flowing white and red sash, and you were like, it's quite.
Whereas, I mean, they had a couple of cool things. One thing we took away is that it looks like every faction has a focus almost, like abilities they could use. So like the Assassin's Creed type faction was they could jump off buildings and stab people down below.
Yeah,
which was a big part of their game. Whereas the other faction, who were more like, if you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft, looked like citizens of Innsmouth. Essentially, they were big fish people, big fish monsters. Their primary thing was they liked to drown people.
So so basically, a lot of them had special moves, if you will, that made them dangerous and deadly to other people. So one of the things that I'm going to just call them the fish guys had that made them amazing was they didn't suffer penalties from moving in water and actually moved faster in water.
Yeah.
So this was another thing that was really cool. So we learned from the get-go that they have a move which is like a grapple move, which you can do with most of the characters, but it was more they have this benefit from doing it. So obviously, initially we grappled this guy, and then you can kind of choose which direction you want to throw them in. So there's none of this kind of like with, say, like Blood Bowl or anything like that, with the scatter die type thing and the whatever. It's more, this game is kind of, if you want to do it, you can do it. It's kind of a very much rule of cool kind of make it up as you go along, which is really, really nice. So obviously, naturally, threw the person into the water, and then they became stunned, which is really, really cool. And then it just so happens that on the next activation, one of our really big, like, chunky bloated fish type dudes could just swim straight up, and there was this like kind of nice feature where with the move it's almost like a charge where you get an attack after it when you come into base contact. So obviously did that and drowned them. Now that is an amazing selling point for me anyway, because I've never played a game where you can drown a character, or initially someone else would set up the throw into the water and then drown the character. And it just made for like a really interesting play, because while the guy was sort of showing us how to play it, he played like sort of the Citizens of Venice, and we played the kind of demony type duos. Afterwards, I went over to play the humans, and then Steve and Matt were playing as the drowning guys. And I think that was really, really cool, because their game plan was just drown.
I think he just kept asking, didn't he? So I'm guessing you guys want to drown them? No, not really. Oh, only kidding. Yeah, we're going to be drowning them.
It was literally just because as soon as they're in the water, we were just watching as all these characters were getting drowned. And like as far as the story goes, those characters ended there and then. But there was really nice mechanics to it. The dice rolls weren't too iffy. It was pretty much just always you roll against the person's agility and stuff like that. So that was quite nice. There was a nice added bonus where you had like a kind of wild dice in there, and then like depending on whether you get a crit on that with another crit on another separate sort of dice, it can give you bonuses. But if you get like a negative, So like double ones, for instance, it means you do really stupid things. So I really like the fact that there's failing checks. So for instance, there was a Venetian like gondola type dude. So he obviously
had like a bladed oar, didn't he?
So that was really, really cool. The oar had a knife on the end of it. That was really, really cool. Because he fumbled, he ends up stabbing himself in the leg.
Yeah.
Which was really, really cool. So it was like you kind of you get given a sort of set criteria of what can happen. So like you take attack damage from the fumbling, but then the guy was like, oh, you kind of make it up. So you go, yeah, he sort of went to hit and he missed and he hits himself in the leg and suffers some damage. You know, like, so that's really cool that you can just kind of make up these little mini stories for the characters. So that was really good.
I mean, in general, it had enough. Like he was telling us about the different factions as well. So like, there's a Doctor's faction as well. What was it he said their ability was? It was
so the Doctors have this. The Doctors have this weird ability. So that there was a whole load of sort of like story based on this. That there was something that opened up in the sky. But basically, the Doctors can harness that power to use into like electric weapons. So some of their characters, which I think all the character models are really nice. The sculpts are fantastic, but some of the figures are just amazing.
The Spectre model you bought is just incredible.
Yeah. I'll get back to that in a second. But basically, some of the Doctors' characters, they have these like kind of conduits kind of on their head. So there's these twisted, contorted humans that are essentially just harnessing batteries that power up the main guy's like laser cannon thing, which is sort of very experimental and can very much explode.
Yeah.
And tear like fabric apart. And so I love the fact that all the characters have got these kind of mental looks to them. Like there was vampires, there was just more citizens.
There was the Vatican.
Yeah, the Vatican. There's a Pope. Like,
so I think he was saying that the story kind of like starts with the Vatican. That they're trying to ban magic, but then decide to harness it or something, and that opens up a rift or something.
Yeah,
and
so basically
then demons start pouring out, and
So there's some really cool. I mean, the book itself is probably like. I mean, it's a thick, chunky book. But what I did really like about it, and the guy sort of said to us, was essentially there's only about maybe 8-10 pages worth of rules. The rest is all just filler and fluff. And I sort of was flicking through it like this morning, and I checked it, and I was sort of like, oh my god, like genuinely, the front is an actual book, a story book of the setting, what happened, how this happened, which I really like because obviously, where it's a newish game, they are trying to set a world in it and explain why and how why is it in Venice, why has it happened in this kind of time period, what's the deal with this alligator dude. So that's another thing, there's like loads of creature figures, and they're just, honestly, check it out, it's relatively quite inexpensive as well as a starting point. I mean, the starter set comes with everything you would need for 2 kind of factions. And we looked at kind of the gangs, they weren't full gangs, but they're only, they're still under about 30 quid to get a full gang, which is pretty cheap considering. Yeah, we're looking forward to playing a bit more of it because it was a really interesting game.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about TTCombat here as well. Just in general, a couple of other things they had on show. They had Rumbleslam on show, which I own. I have the older version of it because it turns out there is a new rulebook for it because they were really focusing on Carnevale and the new version of Rumbleslam.
Yeah, they were.
At this event, and again, it looks really cool. If you're into wrestling and want to try a wrestling miniatures game, they've got you sorted there. It's unique.
It looks really cool. Like it looks like dimensions wise of the ring looked really cool. Like the fact it's actually a physical ring was really nice.
It's not even a skirmish game really. It's kind of, in terms of miniatures game, it's really unique. It's kind of like a square off kind of sports kind of thing, but different enough from things like Blood Bowl and Guild Ball and stuff like that.
I suppose there aren't too many wrestling games.
No, not really. I mean, there's the Worldwide Wrestling RPG, which is really good, really fun. But other than that, I can't really think of much more. So it's a really unique kind of corner of the gaming market. The other thing is they did have sets for Dropfleet and Dropzone Commander as well. I talked to, I think his name was Chris, who said that his little corner of TTCombat is he's kind of
works with that.
It's his baby, looking after the Dropzone Commander, which is a game that I've really been looking to get into.
Yeah.
And I've been struggling to find a good way into it.
Because we saw it at the UK Games Expo, didn't we? And they had a hell of a lot of content there for sort of offers.
Yeah.
And we kind of... we were planning on trying to get some stuff, but I think they had like a stupid deal on the 2-player starter set, and we kind of all looked at each other and went, "Damn, that's really really good." But then we all sort of
passed it up.
yeah,
and regretting it.
one or another of us sort of said, "Well, I like that model, but it's not in there, and I like that faction, and I don't know." And
I think as well, some people were more interested in Dropfleet compared to Dropzone, which is still quite accessible if you're looking to get into Dropfleet. However, they've done something recently where they share a rulebook now.
That's really cool.
So you've got the Dropfleet and Dropzone rules all in one book. Again, I picked up this book and it's just filled with everything you'd need to know. But I also asked him about the 2-player starter sets as well, and he said there is one on its way. It's just a matter of time because obviously there's been updates with the rules. So if you've been looking at getting into Dropzone Commander, there's something on the way. Apparently it's going to have more content than the original set. From flicking through the book, it looks like the new rules are things like behemoths. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Dropzone Commander at all, it's a 10mm game, so it's much smaller than most other miniatures games. But what it does mean is you can fit a hell of a lot onto the map and actually have it feel like a big army.
Yeah, that was
kind of on the map.
It does look very impressive when it's all set up. Like you've got almost that 40k vibe of like Apocalypse, where you've got like 50,000 units or whatever. But in actual fact, because they're smaller, it's actually really compact and covered.
Exactly. So it's a cheap way of being able to set up huge scale kind of like combat. But the new rule which really caught my eye in the new rule book was behemoths, which are new types of unit that are so big on the map. So really in scale, they're probably about as big as a Warhammer 40,000 tank or something like that. So it would still probably set you back a good between 30 and 50 pounds, like it would do in Games Workshop. But on the map, in scale to everything else, these things are absolutely huge. And I think it's I've had a quick skim over the rules, and it kind of looks like you've got health associated with different parts of it. And in order to take one down, you have to reduce 2 different parts down to 0, and then you roll to see what happens to it, because there's a chance it could blow up and just wipe everything out within a certain radius of it when it goes down. Very friendly or enemy. You know, and I think it said it takes down buildings as well, which is really, really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to giving that a bit of a try soon, because I did pick up a few bits for that.
Yeah, that is something that's on our list. It's almost the one that got away from UK Game Expo.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the time we actually get round to it this time round, there'll probably be even more stuff.
Hopefully, yeah. I think another thing to mention as well is even the army starter sets, I think they're all being redone at the moment as well. So they had I forget what they're called, you've got the Scourge and the other ones that were in the original starter set. I think it's UCM or something like that, just the general kind of like...
the United whatever.
Yeah. Those 2 starter sets for those 2 armies have been completely redone. They have more content in them now. You should be able to find them now, I think, but if you're looking at the other 2 armies, the Post-Human Republic, I can't remember, it begins with S, and I can't remember the name of the other one.
That was the one that Ian liked the look of.
It did like orange, bright orange, kind of like flowy ones, and then you've also got the Resistance as well. Those new starter sets aren't available just yet, but I think they're working on it, so a bit of news for you guys if you're looking at getting into Dropzone Commander.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. No, as in like they should hold on.
Oh, yeah, okay. Fair enough. Okay, other things that were going on. There was a lot of really interesting looking, kind of like scenery, kind of like set out on tables for people to be able to play war games on.
Yeah, that was really interesting actually, because most of them were, some of them were just sort of showing off. So there was obviously what you can do with scenery, and they were impressive, and others were sort of holding games, and people were playing games throughout the whole day, like mostly like pirate games, kind of those skirmishy kind of games.
There was lots of historical, kind of like miniatures games going on, like World War II and World War One kind of things. They had a table set up for Wings of Glory.
I can never remember the name of it's like I think like Shot and Pike or something like that, I think it is. There was a lot of those kind of little, really tiny miniature games going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wings of Glory guys were there from the, I can never remember the name. It's something Aerodrome. Maybe Wareham Aerodrome? They're basically a team. They always play at Entoyment, but it was really nice to see them. They all had their little aviator caps on, which is really cool.
And had their cloud kind of.
Yeah. So one thing I love about them,
nice.
I mean, me and Andy went to one of their like sort of open games, if you will. And one thing that's really nice about their sort of style of it compared to say other people's is they have like little kind of add-ons that they've made or someone's made for them. So obviously there's like smoke tokens, fire tokens, and other little things like that. So basically what they've done is make like little pipe cleaner type-esque things. So when you're like, oh, I'm smoking, that you just clip it on there, and you, rather than leaving a token, you obviously leave your token still on your dashboard, but it's nice to see your ship and your plane is flying around with these kind of like smoke trails coming off it. And the way it's designed, it really looks like it's coming out of an engine. So it's just little things like that they do to kind of to make it a little bit more interesting. But the thing we saw, I've not seen them have before, was clouds. They'd made these like kind of plastic kind of stands with like kind of three-dimensional clouds coming out, so that you were above and below and I thought that was so cool. Like nice little kind of feature.
Yeah.
And they were sort of teaching some kids to play it, and it's nice to see kids play because it's a very relatively easy game to get hold of. The models are very difficult to get hold of sometimes because obviously there's comes and goes, so it's quite easy to get sort of some of them, but the more sort of choice ones are always out of print for some reason. Yeah. But it's a nice little thing to sort of teach other people because World War flying is actually a really cool concept. I mean, everyone we've had a go on with it seems to really like it. I mean, you quite enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Matt quite enjoyed it. Andy loves it.
In fact, Matt ended up buying himself a plane, didn't he?
He bought a plane to fight me with. He bought a British two-seater plane, so we're going to have fun with that. I'm going to probably buy the 70 quid Zeppelin and try and destroy him a bit, but we'll see.
So there are other things that are going on there as well. There was people that had little remote control cars. There was kind of a track set up which looked really, really cool. There was I swear there was one or two people that were just on that all day.
Yeah, there was some really interesting skills coming across. Like some people were like reversing the whole way around the track, and like the turns were really like smooth and fluid. It was like a giant. I wouldn't even say Scalextrics because they weren't on a scale like tracks or anything. Just really cool little RC cars.
Yeah, it looked like it was actually all purpose built from one another. It wasn't like everything was to scale, put it that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a mishmash of lots of people's different cars. I wasn't 100% sure whether it was one product or whether it was...
Yeah, whether it was a group or if it was someone else had brought one each kind of thing. It was we didn't actually ask, did we?
No, but it was attracting a lot of people. There was constantly a crowd around there.
The
just
noise,
watching it.
Yeah, the noise and like listening to them as they crash, which is quite funny.
Yeah,
because they're like, oh.
I think it's time to talk about another company that really caught our eye. Foreground.
Yes.
Who made this really beautiful kind of like painted scenery and stuff. I think I went back about 3-4 times and picked this stuff up and just thinking, oh, I really want to buy some of this, and then just deciding, I can't really afford it right now, but lots of really, really cool looking scenery.
Yeah,
including an incredible Frostgrave setup.
Man, so, I mean, like I say, we pull up, and we were looking for them anyway because we knew they were going to be there. It was interesting because obviously one of the things you don't really like too much is you don't mind the MDF stuff, but you just can't be bothered to paint it, and you don't like the look of it when it's not painted.
Do you know what? Speaking about something that I've already talked about earlier, my Rumbleslam ring that I have,
not painted.
It's not painted, and I just can't bring myself to paint it.
Oh my god!
So I've got a kind of like a very plain looking ring.
Does it have like ring skirt wise? Does it have like engravings where you have to put the names, or could you literally put like funny variations on like Raw and SmackDown and stuff?
It's engraved.
It
is engraved.
That would be cool if you could But I suppose you could just get like little bits of cloth and that's the different story.
God, yeah. I mean, elastic bands that you could just paint different colours, do the ropes around the sides and stuff.
Cool. So anyway, back onto the thing. We come up to them, and they were saying like it was really nice because most of the companies that were there were offering, if you can't see it here, look for our catalogue and we'll ship it to you for free. So there was a really nice kind of, even though they didn't have it with them, you got the chance to kind of look through it and speak to them and kind of get it there and then. And they were doing 20% off some stuff.
Yeah.
So you'd still get that off the online order as well, which is really, really nice.
I actually do want to give them a big plug because their scenery is
it's fantastic.
Wonderful.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Really, really high quality stuff.
You're looking at some of the highlights we saw. There was an entire sort of giant Viking like hall in a set at the bottom, which was really, really nice. So complete like all the shields and like the sort of the figureheads you'd have, like the hay kind of style roof. So you could basically make this giant like Hall of Odin, I think it was called, for your Viking games or any kind of games you use with those kind of things. They had like 40k kind of stuff. They like kind of really nice sort of sector imperialis kind of stuff like that. So you could kind of make all these kind of things. There was some really nice like sort of Star Wars sci-fi Legion-y type thing.
It was made for Legion. I was really thinking of buying some of that for my Infinity setup.
They were kind of one of those things where there was a radar dish that looked so impressive.
Oh, that was the thing which I was really tempted
Yeah, that was really, really cool. But one of the things that I liked, I know it was only small, but I really liked it, and I saw it further up, someone had one on display, it was just a gate with like this kind of sort of see-through perspex kind of shield like barrier, which you can just kind of lift out and put it back in. And I think that's a really cool concept because you can have shielded doors to stop people getting in with these kind of force barriers. I think that was really, really cool. I couldn't bring myself to buy stuff because I don't use the stuff I've got enough to...
I think that was a lot of the thing is, at the moment, I'm thinking to myself, my priority right now is actually getting my miniatures painted.
I know, this is the problem.
And at that point, once I've got enough to be able to field 2 armies fully painted, then I'm going to start thinking about getting some scenery. So that was really the thing that held me back, but there was some really nice stuff. I think I'm probably going to put links to both TTCombat, Entoyment and Foreground in the links in the description down below.
TT did their own kind of, I mean they have done for a while, their own kind of MDF printed kits.
Yes.
Relatively quite cheap.
They had a large set there as well, which was really impressive.
It was basically like kind of industrial style urban build up. But because most of their stuff is like the same with the Foreground stuff, you could kind of mix and match where you wanted to put it. Where it's all mostly modular, the limits of this are incredible. You could have Necromunda, you could do 40k, you could do a steampunk style game, or anything like that, where you've got these kind of narrow, you could use those, some of the Kickstarter things we've seen where you get your own like miniatures, you can use your miniatures in any kind of scenario with this book kind of thing. You can make just thousands of different variations, which is really, really cool. The thing that we saw that really, really, couldn't buy it, but never mind. They had this amazing kind of diorama of, best way to describe it is kind of like misty mountains.
So this is the Frostgrave thing I mentioned earlier.
It's very, very themed kind of around like, I want to say Middle Earth. It looks kind of Middle Earthish with like caves and kind of But basically, what it was this huge. I mean, we're talking 4 separated kind of chunks of square that were kind of all built together with this beautiful kind of hill that kind of swept down into like kind of.
It was kind of
path.
Like it's kind of a cross section of a mountain almost.
Yeah, they had on one side you could actually see through it. You couldn't go through the mountain. There was a door, but it was shut. I get the way is shut.
Yeah,
but you
there was a nice like bridge going across as well and stuff. And
so the thing I really liked about it is the snow they put on top of it was just put on top of it. It wasn't glued down. So when you went to touch it, it moved. So when your models were moving, they were getting covered in snow, which I thought was really, really cool because it just adds that kind of appeal. I mean, again, it's one of those things that I would love to have. One of these kind of purpose-built units that you can kind of just space.
Now, tell me, that door, it was shut.
Yes.
And you couldn't go through it.
Yes.
But did it lead to anywhere?
It led to the inside cavern.
So yeah, it turns out that you're looking at the board. It's got like we were talking about, the really nice mountainous setup with the bridges going across and things like that, which went to a door. And when you actually walked around the diorama to the back of it, there was a room carved out.
Yeah, they hollowed it out like a kind of Moria Mines type style thing. Yeah. Old abandoned mines with like kind of pillars and climbing ladders and stuff like that. Again, the level of detail for that, considering you can't physically move through the door.
Yeah.
So as playing wise, you would obviously get to the door and you'd have to just move and take them over the other side. But I think that's fantastic. The fact that the level of detail that's gone into this thing, it really goes to show that there's some miniature. Oh my god, I've lost my words. Miniatures terrain companies out there. Oh, that was difficult. That really going above and beyond just to kind of showcase what they have, and they are one of them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Like I said, we will put links to the Foreground site in the description below. Massively check it. Recommend you check them out, especially if you're one of these people that really needs terrain but does not like to paint it, like me.
Yeah, that's really nice. The fact that it comes in a kind of pre-assembled, but well, in a box, and you just kind of put it together and glue it, and it's done. One thing I will say that was really interesting is we were speaking to Pete, the owner of Entoyment, and one of the things that he was saying was, because he sort of spoke to them and gets on really well with this foreground company, that he was gonna basically they were gonna leave him this model, this big snowy Frostgrave model, as a kind of like a rotation piece. So when they go to different cons, they take different like dioramas to show off and stuff like that, and they take different various systems. So what they said they were going to do is leave him some of them for a while, so that he can let his players play with them, and then kind of rotate them in and out of kind of use. So what I looked the other day when he said on Facebook, he tagged that they've got 4 amazing units, which again we'll probably put in the links. But there's a really nice kind of imperial like derelict city. This can be used for pretty much any kind of sort of small base miniatures game. There was the Frostgrave one that was really, really cool. I'm trying to think what else there was. There was definitely 4. I can't remember the other 2 because those 2 like really took me out. There was like a jungle scene one, but there was some really nice terrain that's now getting put into Entoyment for a bit. So it's like one of those limited type things. Having played on a couple of those like sort of systems before where they're pre-built and you can't really do much with them, it's really nice. It really adds to the game. So it's worth checking out kind of them at some point if you're local to see what's actually gone there. But we'll put links.
Yeah. But Pete then took us on a little bit of a walk, didn't he?
Yeah. So basically it was follow the leader. He just asked us, had we seen the Giants game?
I don't think it was the Giants game. The first thing he wanted us to see was the... it was kind of like a World War II diorama.
Like Berlin or something, I think?
Yeah, that had this kind of periscopy kind of look.
That was really cool.
That gave you this perspective on the battleground that you wouldn't normally see otherwise.
It was really nice because it's almost like one of those things where if you've ever kind of had to do line of sight from behind a model, where you've kind of gone down to try and get to eye line, this kind of periscope put you in that kind of that scale. So essentially you were looking into it and you were the scale of these tiny miniatures, and with that you got this huge, I mean it was a really big real like kind of size miniature anyway, sort of diorama. But
I think the way I would put it is it was a very narrowish kind of street that to look at it from either other side of the board, you could not see anything that was going on down the street. Not the detail
of that, no.
Because they had buildings set up, like building after building after building after building, you couldn't really get a good line of sight onto the street.
It was like miniatures in the street, people, cobblestone kind of stuff, all that kind of jazz.
But as soon as you look down this periscope, you kind of got this big kind of story of all these things going on down this street.
Yeah, see, this was what was really cool because it was very much like putting you in the perspective of a miniature, which I was like sort of saying, which is it's very nice because you were looking down at there was like a cart being pulled by like a horse or donkey, like a couple of people next to it. There was like people in the background. I think there was troops in the background, I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, there was like some troops or stuff in the background, so that was really cool because you essentially were on the street, which was a really nice perspective you don't really get with any games normally. You don't need to necessarily be in the perspective of a figure, which is it's quite a nice little thing.
But I mean, again, even away from that periscope, it was another one of those dioramas that was just beautifully detailed. I think there was like a ruined cathedral kind of style thing that just looked absolutely beautiful.
The level people put in this.
Yeah, the whole design of the street in general was just wonderful. Really, really lovely.
Yeah, I do. This is the thing, I really like these kind of showpieces where you're not necessarily going to be playing them because of the limits of the whole buildings. These buildings were really big and you would have to kind of lean over to kind of get to them. But I love the fact that it kind of shows off. It's a bit like the kind of fascination with railway kind of sets in a way.
Yeah.
Where you have a train set. So I was thinking about saying Andy that said. You've got like a kind of train set, and basically with that you would build all this stuff that you're not going to really use because you can't. The train goes around the track, it does its thing, but then in the background you've got cars, you've got like bus terminals, you've got buildings, you've got all different things that just make the scene look really, really interesting, but they're not functional, which is it's a cool little concept.
Yeah. And just over the way from that, I'll probably
Giants.
I think I'm going to let you talk about this because I will say I'm not a Warhammer 40,000 person. I was blown away by this though.
So, like I say, Pete said, "Have you seen the Giants?" And we were kind of like, "What's he saying? What's he going on about?" So he takes us over there, and the only way to describe it is, I want to say like. You're playing a giant battleship style game, but with giant pieces, which I have seen done before. But these people had got this, I mean, they laid a mat down, which was ridiculous. It was basically a carpet. In the middle had this huge foam wall, like really, really tall foam wall that was kind of broken down. You had basically normal size sets of terrain in huge kind of square bundles placed around this floor matting. And you look down to see pretty much every scale of Titan from 40k that you can get, to the point where there was probably about 10 of like the over £1,000 style the night ones, and you're just kind of like,
I think we estimated, didn't we, that at minimum that must have costed about 20 grand. That was about 20 grand's worth of model.
I mean, we're talking, you're considering the fact that they were all painted, they were all in their own team's colours. But the things that really like completely and utterly got us from this, well, again we'll put some photos in the descriptions and stuff, was the way they were tracking it. Is they had this really cool cork board with each character Titan's like stats, so like the engine temperature, what weapons it has, damage, all that kind of jazz, all over it, and they were using little like coloured pins to kind of denote where you were going. So we were watching it as the guy was playing it. He was using an actual like a laser pointed rangefinder. So he basically knelt down to this huge model, put it on top of like the cannons on its shoulder, measured it from one to the other, was in range, rolled a load of dice on like a separate table, then went over to the thing, and then it must have been negative, and he had to change his reactor core up to another level. I thought that was really, really cool.
It was.
We all realised at this point, though, that game has probably only just got into that point, and it's probably going to be all day, every day for that game.
Probably, yes.
So cool.
It wasn't just impressive on a terms of monetary value that was on the table. It was also the time that must have gone into actually getting that prepared for these events and stuff. Just absolutely incredible.
I can't see them playing, because they had the space of that. I can't see how often they get to play, so maybe this was like one of those really, really good moments of like once in a kind of couple of months type thing.
Yeah.
But it was just really interesting because they all had like huge banners with their teams on it. Everyone was watching it. They had like laptops, people were kind of writing down notes, they had all the books they needed, they had all the kind of, you know, rules and clarifications, which was really, really cool. But it was just a really fun moment to see this huge version of essentially like Titanicus game.
Yeah.
I mean, it blew Ian's mind. He wasn't even there.
So, in that area as well, we didn't really go into it, but that was also next to where they were holding all the tournaments. So they had things like Magic the Gathering going on, various miniatures games as well.
They had loads.
Which were going over both Saturday and Sunday. I think there was Blood Bowl going on as well, I think.
X-Wing, stuff like that.
Yeah. And there was also the historical stuff. So
that was quite interesting actually. They had some people kind of dressed up as like World War One soldiers, which is quite interesting.
And the Viking.
Yeah, again, it was one of those things where it was nice because these guys were obviously showing people. We had this when we went to Eurogame actually.
Sorry, yeah.
Eurogame. I keep calling it Eurogame. We went there. They had like a kind of Viking village set up, and it was one of those things where they were showing people how stuff was. It's really interesting to have these kind of like, even though it's a board gaming kind of wargaming kind of thing, the majority of the stuff that was on show that you were playing was either World War One or kind of like a Viking-esque kind of raider type sort of system. So a lot of the times it was nice to see the fact that there was people wearing this stuff, like walking around, proper like army suits, proper kind of like hand kind of made garb for like the Viking stuff, which was really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's a nice little thing. It wasn't cosplay as such, but it was quite cool. It was very informative.
Yeah, I think now's a good time to say as well. Another thing we didn't take advantage of was there were historical talks going on as well. So I don't know how good any of those were, but they were regular.
So they kept announcing on the sort of intercom system that there was various different talks throughout the day. So we kept hearing that in 10 minutes in such and such hall there will be a talk about a certain battle or a certain time in history. I know from following Entoyment on Facebook that they do this quite regularly. They do these historic talks during like the kind of weeks and stuff like that, where someone will come in and talk about like say the Battle of Britain or something, where it's a game you would be playing. So like say we were playing Memoir 44, they would then kind of sort of show you the history behind it, which is really, really cool because it makes you appreciate the fact that a lot of these things actually happened, what they were like, and it kind of probably gives you a bit more of a perspective on the game or how the games work within the kind of historical, systems, which is really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but we're not history buffs.
No, we're not. Other things to talk about. One of the other things I did want to mention was the kind of like greenery and stuff like that, which you were quite taken with as well.
Yeah.
So again, if you're looking for scenery and stuff like that, there were these really kind of nice kind of vegetation kind of things. I don't know whether I got any shots of it, but I know there was an entire board that was just, it was made out like a jungle almost. Like you couldn't see past the green, yet the amount of detail that was in there still made it really, really interesting.
So it was really cool because they had like bargain boxes, I guess you could say. This is what kind of got me, where for a couple of quid you could pick up like hedges and like little plots of grass patches for like agriculture sort of patches, and they were all really nicely made. It was one of those things where it just added kind of effects to your characters, like to your tables. And I know I've seen before in certain places they've got these like little patches of grass for fields and stuff, and like corn, which would be slightly like taller kind of grass patches. They were really, really interesting, but the thing that kind of got me was the fact that it wasn't very expensive for these trees. I know you can kind of like make trees on various different like YouTube tutorials and stuff like that, but they never look as nice as these ones. And they were just some really cool, like if you wanted a really nice field, a farmland field, for whatever reason, with like jungle in the background or like trees and like little mounds of grass and like little hills, you could get all this for quite relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Which kind of, one thing we did actually not mention, but kind of ties in with this, there was a company selling mats. Really nice mats. To the point where you could pretty much get anything as a mat, like a huge kind of playing space. Depending on the size, you could again choose various different sizes, which wasn't too bad.
It wasn't really like neoprene, was it? Like the mouse mat style ones. It was almost like a
softer
cloth, almost.
Yeah, it's like a softer kind of meshy material. It's really weird. But some of the ones that were really, really nice were they had like just pure grass. So again, you could make these really nice scenes up. And another thing they kind of sort of had was these little strips, which I thought was really nice, of like railway tracks and roads. So even if you had like your cityscape or whatever, you could buy like slightly smaller ones to throw on top, which was quite cool to make these tracks. So if you kind of were looking for terrain, this entire day was fantastic in terms of sort of what you could make from terrain.
God, yeah. If you are a terrain buff or you were looking at getting into it, there was just so much on offer here. Multiple people all selling different things. So there was another company that were selling MDF buildings that were not painted.
Yes, the one on the right.
No, I'm talking about the other ones where they kind of like had the crashed starship and things like that.
Oh god, the one I bought a couple of things.
You bought a couple of bits from them, yeah. I want to give them a mention as well. I've forgotten what was their name again? Because I can't remember it myself. But anyway, whilst Darryl's looking at that, they did have lots of different things for various different games. So some of the things they had was kind of tracker for A Song of Ice and Fire. So when you have your board, usually in A Song of Ice and Fire,
I didn't take their card. That's really. I did take it, but it's in my other.
Yeah, and you could like keep track of things rather than having the printed one that you usually get in the game. You had a really nice MDF one.
Yeah.
They also had something else like a smaller tracker that was. Really cool
so I ended up getting those. Like I said, the one that Steve was just saying about the sort of kind of the tactics board was really, really nicely made with kind of a you get like a time tracker as well, which goes with it. So the thing that kind of caught me was they had a separate sort of cavalry and infantry status marker, which again was just literally a flick up. So if it's, let's say you're panicked or you're weakened or anything like that, you can just flick up the little kind of like little, I don't know what you call them.
Status marker.
Yeah, a little status marker, like just push it up to see what your units are and stick it in front of your unit. The thing that was really nice about it is they had these little grooves in them so you could stick the actual unit card in. So there wasn't a case of you had to go, oh, well, it's, only that one. So you could always at every time go, okay, so my cavalry unit are stunned and, So it was really nice. There was nice little things like that. But they also did they did all the scales, didn't they? They did like kind of 10, 15, 30 millimeter kind of scales.
Yeah.
So if you were looking for, say, like Infinity buildings, not Infinity, sorry, Dropfleet buildings, you could get these really nice kind of huge, well, scaled huge buildings, which is really, really cool. And it was nice that they were selling them as kind of like tiny little packs that were just kind of neat and buildable. Yeah, what they had in kind of, for like it was almost like a Star Wars Legion-esque, parts of a starship, which was really nice, like these kind of broken up parts with like, sort of, it looked like a Star Destroyer, like kind of style build, sort of to it, with like kind of little holes that the troops can come in and out of. There was like almost like I guess it's like Jabba's kind of sand skiff from Return of the Jedi, something like that, and there was like airships for like kind of a steampunk type thing, or Sigma, I guess. They were really nice.
Yeah.
Again, relatively quite cheap.
Yeah. I think before we talk about the board games we played and stuff like that whilst we were there, the last place I really want to mention, because it was a bit different, was, I think it was called Bob's Bits or something like that. It was Something's Bits, where they basically sold second-hand miniatures.
That was, yeah.
So there were big tubs that were out there, some pre-built stuff. I think they also had bits, like it suggests as well. So, like, if you were just looking for parts.
Was that the one when I went to look for the Necrons and stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Again, really neat to see something like that there as well.
Yeah, so the thing that kind of, I think if I spent more time there, the problem is it was quite busy because obviously everyone was buying stuff there, which is really, really good. The thing, what was really interesting was they had the trays, and then they would have, say, a squad of Space Marines. Now, what was really cool was they were on a little bit of cardboard that they'd been glued to, just with like a bit of Pritt stick, so they weren't, attached to it or sellotape to. And there was various different second-hand options for these. So you could have Space Marines in undercoated black, Space Marines with, like, say, ultramarine kind of colours on them, or half painted, or weapons painted. So depending on what price you were looking for, they were all kind of there. Even the painted ones weren't really too expensive. There was quite a few figures that were pretty much... Well, I noticed a couple of Necron stuff I was looking at was pretty much the price you would pay for it brand new, except it was assembled and sprayed black, which is, like, fantastic. It saves you such an easy job. Like,
yeah.
I'm not having to build miniatures. Like, that's, I mean, I don't mind doing it, but it's a pain. And then spraying them, I can just straight up and go, well, now they're silver.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And like he had box stuff as well, like newer box stuff, which was quite interesting. So stuff that obviously had been either sealed and not used, or brand new and they just kept it at some point. But again, the prices were quite reasonable for, like, I found a lot of the prices were reasonable considering some of these figures were painted already, which was, and like, they weren't painted bad. There was a few figures that were painted really, well, quite a few figures that were painted really, really nicely actually. So it was quite professional, mate.
So it's really a section that would have been interesting for people that actually like to play the games rather than building an army.
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, realistically, there was, like I say, there was about, because obviously when I'm trying to start a new army, I looked into it, and by the time I sort of would have spent the same amount of money on buying the stuff myself, I could have got, someone had obviously painted an entire army in the same colours of, like, Necrons. I could have pretty much paid the same price to have them painted already in the colours.
Yeah.
And assembled. So it was just pretty much pick up the box, charge, gone, and I would have been amazing. Like you say, someone who can't be bothered to paint and build.
Yeah. I lied. There is one more place I do want to just mention real quick before we move on.
The toilets.
Toilets?
Yeah, they're amazing.
Oh, I didn't even go in them. Artis Opus, I think, is the last place.
Oh my god.
So if you're looking for painting supplies and things like that, they've just got these beautiful brushes.
They come in. Some of them come in like wooden boxes, like that kind of like calligraphy style box. You can get stuff in. Yeah. Oh my god, they're incredible. They are not cheap, but no, you are getting a high quality product for that.
Yeah, and really, I think that was the last thing I really wanted to mention before we talk about a few. Is there anything else you wanted to mention that was on the show floor?
I think there was a couple of people promoting their own games. We didn't get to check them out too much, but I think there was a couple, and as I was drifting around, there was a few games I think that were getting play tested, I think.
Okay.
I noticed a couple, it said come play test our game.
I think I really liked the look of the homebrew Jurassic Park miniatures game.
Yes.
I think that wasn't a game that's in the works or anything like that. I think that was purely a homebrew thing that people were just playing. I think.
Yeah. So I mean, they basically, again, it was just it was ridiculous. I'm not sure what miniatures they were using. But
They look like Schleck dinosaurs,
oh my
which
god, they were
just
huge.
modified.
I don't think even like they painted them maybe, but,
Yeah, but
like,
they put things like people in their mouths and
oh
things
my
like
god,
that.
I didn't see that. That's so cool. So basically, they had like the terrain. They had jeeps. They must have bought. They had these figures. They printed out and laminated their own like play cards, character cards. There must be rules as well. This kind of goes back to one of the podcasts we did a little while back where we were saying about there was a like a kind of a Kickstarter online for like a book that allowed you to use any miniatures within any miniature game.
Yeah.
However you want, and I very much feel like there is some amazing. If this is one of them, there are some amazing products out there that you can kind of make.
Yeah.
The fact that they kind of, I mean, it would look so imposing. You had all these like little guys kind of sort of set up in the grass, and there was various different trees and stuff. And I think they had a building they kind of made in the middle, and on the back there was just a line of massive dinosaur toys. Not even like just not even miniatures, just toys.
Yeah.
Which obviously had their own stats, and it looked great. This battle line of dinosaurs.
It really did.
Yeah.
Okay, so after all that, we kind of went off, had some lunch, and then went back and we took advantage of the board gaming section.
Yes.
So, like I said, they had a giant library of games there. You could pick out. You didn't have to worry if it was a game you weren't familiar with. There were people on hand to be able to teach you if you really wanted to play them.
Which was good.
Which we did. Nemesis, which is a game we've been looking to play for a long time, the Awakened Realms game. We actually got to play that, or as I like to call it, A Million Ways to Die, the board game. Because it just seems like
God, man.
you are all set up to die in this game.
I mean, we had an initial issue trying to set it up because it is quite a big setup for a game.
Yes.
Having also not ever played it, knowing what you need and what you don't need, it took a while to do.
I think we got a lot of the rules correct. There were a couple of things we weren't doing, which we had corrected.
Oh my god! So we were asking ourselves how and when did the animals, the like kind of alien-esques turn up.
Probably should mention before this point that this is basically Alien, the board game. If you know Alien, the film, this is it in a board game, basically.
Yeah, you can work together or you can work separately to kind of...
We were playing in a semi-cooperative mode.
Yeah, which was really weird because this was the thing where you had these different objectives. They didn't always reveal themselves till sort of later on, and it turns out like... I had one where it was like either player 3 doesn't survive, which I was player 3, or no one else survives. Matt had something to do with get into hibernation with the egg.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know what you had.
My one was I had to hoard at least 7 items and then escape through an escape pod.
That's amazing.
Which was amazing because it meant there was a point in the game where I had to kind of ask, so, not that I have to do this, but how do I initiate the self-destruct sequence on the ship?
This was what was really... I mean, I'd love to play the game again.
Yeah.
I think because there's so many different scenarios that could work in it. I might try and check it when it gets a bit cheaper. But one of the things I liked about it was it very much was a kind of... I don't know. There, like you say, there were so many ways you could die. So, for instance, I got attacked a hell of a lot in one section, and then I ended up picking up things and getting contamination cards. Now, contamination cards basically go into your hand, and essentially you can't get rid of them until you scan them, or use an ability to scan them to get rid of them. They can't be used to pay for stuff, they can't be used for anything else, which is really, really annoying. So it got to the point where I was like, well, I can't really do much with these cards because most of them are all thingies. So I was like, well, alright, I'll do a rest action. The rest action lets me scan them. So what's really cool about them, they've got this kind of little scanning kind of red, I don't know what you call it, it's that kind of weird material, like plastic stuff, that when you slot the card in, it reveals a message. And it was all numbers and codes, and if it says infected on it, basically you die. So I die eventually and then become... So I ended up getting so many wounds that I lost an entire arm essentially, so I couldn't use another object, I couldn't carry things. I can't remember what else I couldn't do. I then got infected like 3 or 4 times. It then turns out I die and then become like something, like a crawler comes out of me where my body was.
Yeah, it was essentially you had something burst out of your chest.
Yeah, and it was just so ridiculous, all in like the space of kind of, we didn't have... I think we get like 15 or 16 rounds and we barely got through the half of it. You had Matt trying to get into the hibernation chamber because he was playing cocky.
Yeah.
Which then awoken a queen.
Yeah. And
he was like, I'm not playing that.
And I think I was, like I said, the problem with my goal was the fact that to escape through an escape pod, you have to trigger the self-destruct sequence, because only when it's so far through the countdown, the escape pods actually open up.
Yeah.
So I had to try and find a way of being able to trigger that and then survive long enough to get to the escape pod to escape with all my booty.
Yeah, there were some really interesting cards as well. Like some of the ones allowed me to either repair or destroy an engine. So I feel like at some point that would have been great.
I think that would have been. That was. I think the guy that was teaching us the game said one of you will probably have an objective where you have to reach your destination.
Yeah.
And none of us actually did. So we didn't really play much of that way, because we have to make sure things like all the engines and stuff are fully working. We have to make sure the coordinates are correct, that we have to take us to the correct destination, I think it was, and stuff like that.
I think because when we had the two hands for the cards, I think one of mine said you have to either go to Earth, Jupiter, or somewhere else. I got rid of that one because I was like, well, I don't know if that's what we're playing, and I feel like realistically I want to dick over someone.
Yeah, sure.
So a part of me was thinking about blowing up the engine, but I didn't know how it worked.
Honestly, my final verdict on this game is it's a fun game. I think it's a game you can't take too seriously, because there is a lot of player elimination,
100%.
like early player elimination where a player can suddenly just not have anything to do. I'm kind of glad I didn't buy it, because this certainly feels like it's one of those games where it's lots of bits in a box, and sometimes it can be more trouble than it's worth to play, simply because the setup takes so long. Like if you haven't planned to play Nemesis on the night, and then people come around and say, "Hey, let's play Nemesis."
Yeah, the setup. I mean, I know we were messing around with trying to read how you set it up as we set it up, and it took us about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, if we knew what we were doing, probably wouldn't have taken so long.
I still feel as if it would have taken a long time then, like a good 20 minutes to set it up.
Which again, like you say, it really destroys the kind of mood if everyone's like, "Oh, let's play it," and you're like, "Okay, yeah," and you got to sit there for 20 minutes while you're just setting stuff up and sort of kind of watching what's going on and not actually playing. It's kind of thing.
I think, then after that, Matt took his leave.
Yes.
Which left it down to us. And we played a couple more games. We played Fox in the Forest Duet. Which
I really like that game.
I really like this game as well. It's nice and short. It has a few... I will say it has similarities to Mind in that you have to try and get on the other player's wavelength. The idea is to collect all these gems within this forest by playing a trick-taking game with cards. So you have to balance between winning and losing tricks. So yeah, sometimes you want to try to deliberately lose, because when you win, the marker moves in your direction. When the other player wins, the marker moves in their direction. And because the idea is, as a cooperative game to collect all of the diamonds that are on the board, you have to balance finely between moving it one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, it got a bit tense actually, because there was a couple of times where it was sort of like, you have to sort of block off a route. The cap off and end part, and it really meant, like, because we went off one round, I think we went off, we ended up having to put another one down, and it very much was like you were kind of, if we do this again, that's it, it's game over. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to do this, and it got really difficult when you're trying to match the suit of cards when you don't have the suit, and all you've got is something that doesn't allow you to move. It allows you to do an action, which is kind of very difficult but quite good. I
mean, the game that we played of it got down to one gem being left on the board.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that I think there was one suit where we might have been able to do something with, but of course you don't know this because you're not allowed to talk about what cards you have in your hand. So there are 3 suits in the game, and I think if I had picked one of the suits, it would have screwed you over. If you had picked one of the suits, it would have screwed me over. But we don't know this at the time, and
this is the fun fact about it, that you're just not sure what you're going to play, especially when it's like you had the lead from before. So it's very much like, say, Stephen won the last round, even though it's not winning as such. He gets to put down first, and when he puts it down, you go, "Oh, God, I haven't got any cards that match that or do anything beneficial. I'm just going to win." So you win, and it's like, then it takes it back the other way, which when you're trying to go, say, one route and you end up going the other way, it gets really frustrating.
I think it's a terrific game for
a
2-player game. There's Yeah, I think there's a fair few good cooperative games out there for 2 players, and this one just joins the list of them, I think.
We ended up playing a... Oh my god, sorry. Sorry. We ended up playing a... if you didn't realise, guys, it's actually night time here, where we are right now. Yeah, it's 3 in the morning. Yeah, so there was another game we played. I can't remember the name of it, actually.
Dead Man's Hand.
Dead Man's Hand, there we go. It was a well-loved pirate card game. Push your luck game.
Yeah.
Very well-loved.
So it came out the library and the cards were very worn.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times this game's been played. It was incredible.
But it's such a quick game that you can understand why it's been played so much. It's kind of like, I think my copy of Love Letter, for example, is very worn at this point because it's such a quick game and it's always a, let's do one more kind of a game that it just gets worn down very easily.
I've never heard of the game before, but it was quite a nice little kind of, again, 2-player, 3-player, whatever, card game.
A little push your luck game.
Yeah, I mean, each card you sort of did an action with, again, a bit like Love Letter. It was fun. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting. It had other options as well to play, like with more advanced rules and like different.
We just played the basic version of it.
Yeah, and I can see why it's been used quite a bit. But it was interesting. I mean, one of the other things as well, not sort of on the games, is watching other people playing other games, which is quite nice. So there was a guy teaching like a younger kid how to play the Marvel...
Oh, the new Marvel superhero card game.
Yeah.
The new living card game from Fantasy Flight.
Might buy. Because of what I was listening to in between us sort of setting up games and playing games, it was like a weird... They were basically between them having to try and fight the bad guys. So it's like a living card cooperative game, weirdly?
It is. So it's only just started and it's only had a few expansions released for it so far. And I've got to admit, I've also been going backwards and forwards between whether I'm going to buy this game or not. And I think for me, it's simply because I already have the Arkham Horror card game, which, as far as I've heard, is still a better game than it, from a lot of the reviews and stuff. And that's kind of what puts me off, but I really like the idea of playing a cooperative living card game with these superheroes.
Well, the thing that was really interesting was where the characters could flip to an active side, like a different hero side. So, for instance, Bruce Banner flipped to the Hulk, Peter Parker flipped to the Spider-Man. I really like the fact that there was this option of flipping cards to do different things. It sounded really interesting. I'm not going to lie, it's in my basket, I'm just waiting.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I might get it and we'll play it. But,
I'm totally up for that.
But yeah, that sounded really cool. One of the things that was really funny was we were listening to a couple of people play The Resistance.
Oh yes, yeah.
So that was really interesting. It's funny, we always go on about how The Resistance is a really fun game, especially with people that you can't trust, apparently. And one of the things that's really interesting is listening. Having usually we just play it, you listen to, say, like Ian trying to blag his way through the fact that he's clearly the fucking betrayal, and I'm not, and he's like, well, I think it's Darryl, and you're like, I know you're lying because I'm not, kind of thing. It's really funny listening to another group of people, quite a big group, I think it's about 6 people, doing the same thing, going, well, what are you taking him for? He's, like that kind of thing. And it was really interesting to listen to how other group dynamics, it's pretty much, it boils down to the exact same thing of one person is trying to trick everyone else.
Honestly, I think The Resistance is a really great spectator game.
Oh yeah,
like it's so fun to watch. It's incredibly stressful to play, but it's a good kind of stressful.
Oh yeah.
And watching people go through that is so fun.
It was. I kept hearing them arguing. I kind of like peeked over, and they're going at it like, if you take him, we are going to lose.
I think the last thing I want to mention from that as well is they had a really cool looking giant version of Hey That's My Fish.
Yeah, loads of kids were playing that. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to see stuff like
that. You
had
so it was like hexagon tiles, but the thing that was really, really cool is they had like loads of penguin cuddly toys that had little name tags on them. So there was one that actually said Steve on it.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed as we came.
I did not.
Oh, Steve the penguin.
Right. What did you think overall of it? What did you like? What didn't you like?
So, I like 3 things.
I'm sure there was more, but there's 3 in particular.
These are my 3 main.
Yeah.
3 final moments. One was the price. Cannot knock that price. if you'd have got it early, it was £5. We only paid £7.50. That's it. There's no concession there. It's just and like under whatever it was. I think tens were free. That is ridiculous. You can't. We pretty much had a good day out till like 6 o'clock, and then from that point onwards you can play games. So
Yeah.
in terms of even if you just want to go to say a board game cafe and play games, you're still pretty much that you're good. Like for £6 with kids, you're good. The second thing was it was managed very well, so there was enough to see and watch and play that kept you kind of going throughout the day. There was enough for everyone in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really interesting games going on. There was like Stephen was saying, there was like people dressed up with like kind of stuff you can go and talk to them about. There was historical things. There was tournament games if you just want to watch tournament games. They had this. We forgot to say they had Star Wars people there. Like I can't remember the name of the group, but they had some Star Wars characters walking around, so the kids can go and take photos with them. That was really cool. And the third thing for me was the location. Not having to travel miles and miles and miles was absolutely fantastic, and just being able to kind of walk out. The main problem we found with the Birmingham NEC, for instance, is just the price of general things like food-wise, whereas with the fact that it was local to us, I know it's local to us, but Bournemouth, we could just walk into town and hit up anywhere for food.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, we weren't limited to having to sort of buy, not by any means as the big. They had food and it wasn't that, it's not overpriced by any means, but it just meant we had other options, which is really nice. Whereas with other places, sometimes you're kind of limited to what's on site, which is, yeah, I mean, I'm going to go again next year.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I'm going again.
I think the thing is, I feel like although this is its 5th year, I think, it feels like one of those things where it just could only get bigger. Like it will get bigger and bigger. Like maybe they'll have more board games, because obviously that was a big hit this year with trying out board games rather than just wargaming. Because I know like a lot of times in the past I've seen it and gone, oh, it's just a wargaming thing, and I'm not really into that side of things as much as like potentially I could be.
So if I want to go into the things which I particularly enjoyed about it, the amount of people that I saw there having fun, basically.
Yes.
I mean, as much as I love the UK Game Expo, and I think it's probably the expo to go to, which I think seems to be the consensus of a lot of people, the one thing you did have here was more of a sense of a community here. Compared to the UK Game Expo. I mean, you have your little groups that are all there and are representing themselves really well. For example, like the Wings of Glory guys and stuff like that.
With the little hats.
Yeah, with their little hats and things like that. They really looked like they were having fun. The people that were playing the RC game, again, was just creating a whole lot of buzz. Again, it's just people having fun. It's something that I got here that I did not get from the UK Game Expo, which, to be honest, if you're going to try and compete in terms of scale and the sheer amount of things to do, you're never going to compete with that. It's just in its own league.
Cool.
And I think that was my main takeaway from this. I think the people that were there were tremendously helpful. As Darryl said, it was really, really well managed. Like, every single time you went over to look at something, someone was there to say, hey, I see you're looking at this. Did you know such and such?
Yeah, it wasn't even in a pushy way. It wasn't even a kind of buy my thing now. Like, this was the interesting thing with when we went to the TTCombat. The guy didn't work for them.
Yeah.
This was just a guy that enjoyed the game. Like, he didn't work for TTCombat, so he didn't need to sell anything. He just wanted to show us the game, and that was kind of one of the things that was really nice about it. It wasn't very much like a push. If you wanted to buy stuff, there was shops.
Yeah.
There was plenty of shops there and stalls there you could buy stuff. People were explaining what they had, what they can do, what services they can do. So like the woman that came up to us and said about, look, if you can't see it, look for the catalogue, we'll order it in for you and get 20% off. You know, that wasn't pushing, that was just saying, look guys, you can still buy the thing you want, but we don't have it. You know, so that was really, really nice.
And to be honest, let's not forget that this is still very much, it's not one of the major conventions yet.
No.
This was very well represented. They, like I said, they had representatives from Asmodee. Warlord Games were there as well, who we didn't mention earlier.
Oh yeah.
Like we said, all the guys that we've already mentioned.
Warlord Games, yeah, literally forgot about Warlord Games.
Yeah,
They had a really good stand actually.
Yeah, it's very, very well represented. There's lots of stuff on display here. I will say I have a couple of negatives from it, and some of these I will say are very, very personal and won't apply to a lot of people.
May I just put one thing we forgot to say?
You may.
One thing we forgot to say was there was a really nice painting competition going on.
Yes.
So various different miniatures from various different games. So there was a real big cabinet, and it was really nice to see how some exceptional painting goes on. There was 40k. There was was it all just 40k? And like
No, I think there were other things
There
in
was
there
other
as
stuff,
well.
wasn't there?
I'm pretty sure there was.
Some people had painted like kind of 3D busts of characters, which were really, really nice. But what was really, really cool about it was they were getting given these like little mini trophies, which was really, really cool. Anyway, back to Steve's negative thoughts.
I will only say there are a couple, and one of them is if you're expecting to go down there and spend an entire day there, you really have to be in the mood to actually be playing the games and stuff there. In terms of walking around the expo, you can do it all in about an hour and a half, and then it's more about getting yourself involved in everything. If that's not your thing, then you'll be done here very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Like I said, about an hour and a half, you can see everything, you can make your mind up about what you want to buy and what you don't want to buy, and pretty much be done with your day. However, I will say, if you were going to this, I would massively recommend getting involved with playing the games, because there's a lot of fun to be had there. So really, that's the only real negative I would say against it, and I think that's very much down to your own personal take on things. Really.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not prepared, oddly, if you're not prepared to go to a board game place and play board games,
Yeah.
or interact with people you don't know,
Yeah.
which I get it, people don't. It kind of feels like you are missing out. Obviously,
It
the
does.
fact that we didn't play some of the games that people were asking us to play, which mainly one of them was because he has Deep Blue, and we haven't played it here yet.
I have, but
I've not played it here yet,
No.
and I'm the only one that matters.
no, everybody dice. Where only Darryl matters.
Oh my god, that'd be a great little slogan.
We'll get the shirts printed up.
That'd be a
soon.
great show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, realistically, because we have some of these games at home, there's no point us necessarily playing and taking up time when someone else could learn to play it. But it was nice that they were still offering.
I think my only other thing, and this is far more of a personal thing, was there was hardly any Infinity stuff there, which I was kind of what I was going and planning on spending a lot of money on. But really, like I said, there was only really one stall with Infinity stuff on. It was interesting to see that Malifaux was very well represented there, and I think that's largely because you've got the 3rd edition that's only recently come out. So I think a lot of places were kind of getting rid of their 2nd edition models.
Makes sense
and
in a way, yeah.
promoting the 3rd edition stuff. It was, yeah, I think that was the only thing. But like I said, that's very much a personal thing, and you can't expect a place to just cater for one person's needs, you know?
Yeah. We'll put a complaint in either way.
Yeah, definitely. Sort it out, guys.
No, guys, not being funny, but Steve's well known. Like, this beard is well known.
Well, that's a complete lie. But anyway, apart from that,
Bet if I did a search for Steve's beard, something would come up.
you reckon so?
I'd have to make it, but something would come up.
Yeah, yeah.
Appreciation
Anyway.
site.
Anything else you want to add at the end of this? Next year.
Yeah, it's next
Keep
year.
a lookout. We're
Really
definitely going to be attending next year.
Yeah, it's like I say.
Like I
it's-
said, don't take my criticisms too seriously, because they are very minor and
No.
very much depend on the person that's going to it.
One
Like,
thing that
for us, it's perfect.
One thing that was really nice about it was where it was a little bit smaller compared to like the UK Game Expo. You weren't necessarily having to queue up for things.
Yeah.
Like that's what usually takes a lot of time is queuing up to play games or waiting around to play games. Whereas there were like obviously we managed to play a couple of games and stuff. People were sort of not really queuing up behind us. They were watching and then they were jumping in when they needed to. So that was kind of nice where you don't have to necessarily spend a lot of time standing around, which is, you know, it's one of those things where I find with most cons, doesn't really matter what it is, a lot of times standing around to kind of queue up to either look at things or even just buy stuff. Like I know like when I went to, not games related, but when I went to Comic-Con in London, I was trying to get, just even to look at, to buy things, you were still having to sort of queue a little bit to kind of get into, like, get in the space, which is crazy considering all you're doing is trying to look at things, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. I would recommend anyone go to it. It's a very nice, very family friendly as well. There was kids there, so it wasn't necessarily like a kind of only
It was a
teen
very family friendly event. It really
Which
was.
I think is pretty much what Entoyment sort of planned to be anyway. They're a family friendly kind of group. They don't really necessarily stop you from playing whatever. I mean, they have kids games, they have kids days, they have adult stuff. Like, this is the thing. It's not.
I think this is the thing. Is like the UK Game Expo. It felt like we were all geeks there.
Yeah.
Whereas this one felt far more like families going to have a family day out, which was great.
You know, me and Steve are the mum and dad, and Matt was our son. You know, it was very much like we let him have a good day out, and bless him, he got tuckered out and had to go home.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
He's going to kill me for that.
So yeah, keep an eye out for Beachhead 2021. I'm sure it will happen. And if you want to keep up to date with us, you can find everything in one place at everybodydice.com. You can follow our socials on Twitter at everybodydice and on Instagram at everybodydiceshow. If you'd like to back us financially, we always welcome a little bit of extra money to help fund the things we
need pocket
do.
money for Sweet Matt.
At patreon.com/everybodydice. Apart from that, if you want to watch more of our videos, we've probably got them on screen right now. Don't forget to leave a like, share, comment and subscribe. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye! You're still not saying bye?
This is a different one.
Bye.
So this is a different one, so I feel like I can. Bye, guys.